China's lockdowns are really
Yeah.
tough. So over the weekend, like even on TikTok or Twitter, we're seeing these videos of these chilling videos of people starting to scream from their buildings, like wailing because they're so frustrated with the lockdowns. They've been locked down under a draconian lockdown since April 5th. And again, take this with a grain of salt, press but this is Yahoo News right here. And you see people jumping from balconies, and you see people.
No, that's a verified story, by the way.
Yeah, and you see people like pulling their like fridges out to their balconies and showing they have no food. So people are like literally starving. And so I mean, Tom, you and I are both Western capitalists here, and so I think this is a good example of when top-down management, can be really tough.
I think it's the same symptom of we're seeing in Russia right now. We're seeing a different example of it in China. Shanghai is obviously China's capital, lockdown for 2 weeks. And when I say lockdown, it's not like the Western lockdown, like real lockdown. 26 million people caged like animals. I mean, if you're verified, they'll take you away to this makeshift camp. And if your kid is and you're not, they'll take away your kid. Like, it's insane stuff. It's like a dystopian society, sci-fi bullshit. Now Guangzhou is also closing their schools because of an uptick in their cases. So Guangzhou is next. I mean, there's no way to buy food. There's no deliveries. There's no way to go outside and buy food.
They're trying to deliver, but they can't deliver. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a nightmare scenario, and it could not have happened in a Western society where governments have accountability. But in places like Russia, they can send young 18-year-old kids to die in the meat grinder and just as much as needed until they get the conquest they need. And in the same sort of non-accountability scenario in China, they can just starve whatever amount of people they need as long as they have 0% tolerance to COVID. And this is just another example where these countries like China and like Russia treat human beings like expendable statistical numbers. And to that, I only say, fuck China, fuck Russia. And if anybody from these countries are watching our show, we support you and our heart goes out to you. And hopefully you won't have to live like animals for much, much longer. And that's all I got to say about it.
Driving the point home. The F-bombs are directed at like the governments and the government system of top-down autocracy.
The government and whoever supports these governments.
Makes sense.
So if you fuck with Chinese government, fuck you too.
One thing I will say is, well, yeah, and we're going to move on a little bit to, obviously, we don't even need to drive the point home. This is driving up inflation over there.
But there's also an economic side to it.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. We can just gloss over. I don't think it's that complicated. Okay. Driving up inflation, like we saw over here, but it's also like production, right? So the next story is a quick one about NIO, but it's going to screw up production. I just didn't realize how, I think for the past 3 decades, we've seen how efficient their system can be, right? How efficient a top-down system can be. And we thought that they locked down initially very, very well.
I thought so also myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think both can be true. I think if you have a benevolent dictator and that dictator is drank an extra cup of coffee that day and is on point, they can distribute food and entertainment to a lockdown population very efficiently. But when you mess up anything in that line, there's no market to have your back. The market doesn't backfill your mistakes. And that's the beauty of the market, right? Entrepreneurs backfill any service that is net profitable for them and for society. But for them, it's it's the same thing with, wasn't there a huge famine on multiple occasions in China, right? Because of certain mistakes on farming. So if you make the wrong mistakes, that is amplified because you are the only dictator there. But anyway, so I guess, do you want to move on maybe to the production side of things?
Yeah, it's not just NIO. NIO is just one symptom of a larger disease. You think companies like Apple, like Tesla, are not going to get affected by this? This is potentially huge. If right now we're looking at about 20,000 cases per day and going up, I mean, companies like Western tech companies are also going to be in the mix for this fuckery. And I think Apple even more so than Tesla, because Apple is almost exclusively dependent on Foxconn, and it doesn't look good right now. So if we're looking at it from a macroeconomic perspective, and it's hard to talk about macroeconomics and money, when we just talked about how people don't have fucking food because of these assholes working in cage in their own houses. But just to kind of, if we can make this little shift, microeconomically, this is really, really bad because we're already struggling with so much supply chain fuckery. Also, geopolitics, reopening. There's just so much mess in the world right now. The last thing we need is the world's factory to shut down for God knows how long. This is not good. And in fact, if you are either Jerome Powell or Biden or both, at this point, you're basically saying, "Can I get a break, motherfucker?" Like, this is literally like the worst thing that could have happened. Like, it's just insane.